Well, the Australian government is urging Australians trapped in Lebanon to take evacuation flights that are planned for this weekend. There are roughly about 15,000 Australian citizens in Lebanon, and that includes dual citizens, but the majority of them don't want to leave. That includes Bakar Mohamad, who's from Sydney and is now in Tripoli in Lebanon, having been there for roughly 4 months. Bakar, good to have you with us. Good evening your time, so why not leave?
Thanks for having me. I came to Lebanon for a reason. I came to learn about the country's development. I came to work here as a producer, and I understand that the situation is quite detrimental right now. I've had to evacuate Beirut and come up to the north, where it's a bit safer. But I think because the risks are not as much towards the north, I've decided to continue, and I've come here for a reason, and I want to continue that reason until perhaps I feel that it's riskier, then I'd consider leaving.
Yeah, Tripoli, if I recall, an hour or two drive north of Beirut. Are you seeing much in the way of tension on the streets in Tripoli?
In Tripoli, not so much. So we've got our daily dose of Israeli jets in the morning that usually come up here. But apart from that, I think the only risk, or the only thing that Tripoli is seeing is it's currently, I believe, the second most populated city when it comes to the displaced people. So there's over 1 million displaced so far, and a lot of them have come to Tripoli. But with regards to danger, not so much. We haven't really seen much here.
So how are things in Beirut before you decided to leave Beirut?
I left around 2 weeks ago, so just when things started to escalate. So there was your average sonic booms that you'd constantly hear. But I didn't experience any of the shelling or the bombings myself. So I was in an area called Al-Ashrafiyya and then Badaro, which are relatively safer regions, perhaps 15 minutes from Dahiya, which is where most of the Israeli bombing's been. So most of what I experienced was the sonic booms. You'd be sitting in a cafe and then all of a sudden you just hear this massive or this loud bang, and you're certain that something close by is being hit. And then you see the entire street just filled with people looking out. And it's just the sonic booms. It's just Israeli jets breaking the sound barrier.
Yeah. So have you got a plan if things do worsen, if things head north and perhaps worsen where you are?
I've definitely got some some contacts or some ways to get out. So I know there are currently from Tripoli there are boats that go to Turkey from Tripoli. So that's one avenue I'm always considering. Flights-wise, it's quite difficult. There's probably only MEA, Middle East Airlines, that's still operating. But I think if things escalate, then I don't think that's really going to be an option. There are routes where some have told me you can go north to Syria and then from Syria catch a flight. But the idea is just getting out of the country, and that's probably the most difficult. So far, I think the safest route that I know of that's not through flights is a ferry ride to a southern suburb of Turkey, or southern city of Turkey.
Have you got any friends or family or other Australians that you know of that are pretty keen to get on those flights?
Personally, in Lebanon, no. I know that through reading there's a ton of Australians that want to flee that aren't able to at the moment because flights are just so scarce. My boss recently, who's an Australian, caught a flight last week, and it took us around 2 days to find her something. But yeah, apart from my boss, no, I don't really know other Australians that.
It's Bakar, it's a heck of a time for you to be there researching Lebanon.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's tested me, no doubt. It's nothing compared to what the others are going through. Like I've got friends left in Beirut and the stuff that they face. I have family that have been displaced from the south. And look, for me to complain about what I'm going through, I think I'd feel a bit guilty. But it's an experience, and I think it's part of what it means to learn about Lebanon's development, but also the region at large. It's experiencing this type of instability that might erupt sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's tensions with Israel is a big part of Lebanon's story. But appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and hope you can stay safe. I appreciate you talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.